So hello. Hello, I am Bridget Botelho. A little bit about me before we start. I've been a tech journalist for about 20 years, editorial leader. I was the head of content innovation for Informa TechTarget this past year, where I led AI trainings, helped the company develop an AI-powered RAG database on all of our published content, trained the teams on how to use AI tools, and recently launched my own online AI training program for creative professionals and small business owners. So I've launched one module of that. And fun fact, I'm also an artist, a mom of two girls, and adoptive mom of many animals, including a thoroughbred horse recently. What you will learn today, I'm going to go over some stuff that you might already know. So just bear with me through that stuff. We'll talk about what AI actually is and isn't, ethical AI use, which really goes into the topic of, why we see so much slop, what slop, how that happens, effective prompting strategies, and then how to train AI to stay on brand, for your clients or for your own firm. And really, I would love for people to jump in with questions and make it more of a discussion. So I'm not just, talking so we can be very interactive with this. So the basics here, I mean, AI is a tool that recognizes patterns from massive amounts of data. So you can think of it like a really advanced, really, really advanced autocomplete, where it would predict what words come next based on what you ask it. I find that a lot of people are threatened by AI, especially content creators, because we see all of this content out there that's being created by AI. But if you step back and think about how AI works, right? It's trained on content that already exists, so it's derivative. It's never going to go out there and come up with a new scoop or something like that, right? It can only pull from what's already been created. So I think as creative people, marketers, content creators, we can kind of rest assured in that we are still very much needed, and these are just tools to help us be more efficient. No magic, no consciousness, just a ton of reference data. And keep in mind the key difference from traditional software. So like traditional software follows exact rules where, if you click Control C and Control V in Microsoft Word, it's always going to copy and paste, where AI is probabilistic. So it makes educated guesses based on patterns. Ask the same question twice, you'll get, the information might be the same, but presented to you in a different way, maybe from different sources. Any Anything on that anyone wanted to discuss?
No comments yet, Bridget, but I do
Okay.
love the really advanced autocomplete analogy. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, or Google on steroids,
Just
you can
because it
think of
can
it
be
that
meant
way.
to sound like, hey, congrats on the
You guys probably already know this, but we can talk a little bit about the AI chat tools, right? There's, of course, ChatGPT. This one was the one that took the world by storm. I am fond of Claude. I like it. I think it's more verbose, maybe sometimes too verbose, but it's good at analyzing longer documents and more nuanced conversations. Of course, there's Google Gemini. It integrates with Workspace, and it now includes the Nano Banana image, that name, image generation tool, which is fun to play around with. I found that when you're reprompting it to correct things, it doesn't quite follow instructions, but these are all so new. We're at the very beginning, so these are only going to get better. Perplexity is a great AI-powered search tool. It cites sources, so it's considered much more reliable than some of the other ways that we're getting information from AI. Microsoft Copilot, this is commonly used, I think, in big companies because they already buy Microsoft software, so they get Copilot as part of their suite. And then one of my favorite tools, if you haven't tried this, is Google Notebook LM. I'm curious if anyone here has used that for anything. It's basically an excellent research tool where you can put your brand documents, you can put research papers into it and query against the information that you're putting in there, and it will help you. It'll only base its answers on what you provide. It will pull some contextual information, depending on, I think, if you have the paid plan or not. But it'll create an audio version of like two podcast hosts talking about the information that you put in it. And it's kind of mind-blowing how good it is. I actually just got my certification as a generative AI leader through Google, and I put all of my notes into Google Notebook LM and used that to study. It created flashcards, it can create quizzes, and then the audio version so that it helps you learn information in new ways. So I would say try a few. They have their different strengths, different personalities, and it's really dealer's choice. Like whatever, whatever style you prefer, you just have to try them and keep in mind that these tools are free, but they're not really free because you're paying for it with your data. And there are ways to put stuff in there and keep it private. There's like a little button at the top of like ChatGPT and Claude on the right hand side where you can put your chats in there and it's temporary and the model doesn't train on that. So you can just be aware of that and then of course never put personal or proprietary data in any of these free tools. I think it's really important when we're talking about AI is to be aware of its limitations. And I say limitations as of December 1st, 2025, because those could disappear in 2 months. But, I think a big problem with it is that AI will confidently tell you things that are completely wrong. That's been a problem we called it hallucinations. It could, you know, I've seen many times where it's blown me away because it gives me information so quickly and then the sources that it cites, it'll give you a link, a hyperlink, and you click on it and it goes to a 404 page. It's a sycophantic tool that just wants to please people. So it's trying to give you stuff even if it doesn't have it. So make sure if it's citing sources, you can always ask AI to cite sources for information and then actually click on the source to make sure it's legitimate. I would say it's gotten a lot better. Hopefully, you all, if you're playing around with AI, you found that it has improved, over the past couple years. So always fact check. And I like to think of the AI output as the work of a college intern or a new employee who doesn't have the context and the expertise that you have. So you as the user are in charge of quality control. And that's why, you have to be responsible and check the output. And then, of course, you can't really expect AI to make complex legal or financial decisions for you, understand the emotional needs of your users, your clients, or to create truly original work. And that, marketing is about building relationships, right, with clients, customers. That's still a critical need. I was posting on LinkedIn recently, and someone called Michael Covington, he is a AI consultant, said the big principle of AI ethics is if it's wrong to do something, it's wrong to do it with AI's help. And I think that sums it up very well. Just you never want to trick your audience. So if you're using AI, there are degrees of like if you're using it, 10% of the content that you created is you used AI for, maybe you don't have to disclose that, right? But within your organization, you would discuss, okay, at what level should we be using AI for the content that we're creating or the work that we're creating? If you're creating something for a client and they're expecting it to be 100% original, you would obviously want to meet with that client and say, here's how we use AI tools in our organization. We're using these tools because it makes us more efficient and do a better job for you. And if you don't want us to use it for this purpose, then we won't do that. It's just transparency is always the best policy, I find. Um, and then, of course, always follow platform specific rules about disclosing your use of AI generated content. As of now, you can't actually copyright anything that's AI generated because, as I discussed before, everything that AI comes up with has been derived from something else that already exists. So, you can't copyright what it produces. And if you do use AI to draft content, heavily editing, rewriting, and infusing with your own voice is the best way to go. Bottom line, I mean, these tools increase efficiency, but you still have to do your job. It's not a magic tool that's going to do everything for you. And we always want to prioritize the value that we can give to our clients, to our audiences. So, using AI with an eye toward maintaining audience and client trust. I'm sure you've all seen incidents of, a company putting out AI content and people assumed that it was generated by a human, and that's where the trouble comes in, is when people feel tricked, and that never goes over well. Recently, this was flying around LinkedIn. A newspaper in I believe it was Pakistan, um, had at the end of their article, in the little bubble here, you can see they included the output from AI that said, if you want, I can also create a snappier front page style version. So that was actually printed in the article. I did some research on it and found that this newspaper staff had like, two editors or something, and they were using AI to edit the written content. Obviously, they didn't edit out that last that last part there, and that obviously undermines trust from their audience. And so, a lot of people were up in arms about that being AI being part of the content creation process, especially for editorial. And I think even for marketing, generic AI content and errors are going to erode the trust and your brand distinctiveness. So if you're using AI without a strategy, you end up with a content voice that sounds a lot like everything else. And at this point, we can probably all identify something that's written by AI. It's usually overstuffed with adjectives. Emojis are involved. It's unoriginal. That's the output is sort of just ways that people don't talk to each other. Common signs, I think, are cliches or buzzwords, repetitive phrasing, weak voice. And then audiences tune that stuff out. We're seeing, generic AI content is just not seen as quality. And I'm beginning to see people say, if you hear someone say, I read this on ChatGPT, your first thought is it's probably not true then. So I think we're at this inflection point of these tools are getting a bad name, and there's a lot of mistrust. And I think, trust is the most valuable asset that a brand has now. So, it's really important to use these tools responsibly and protect the trust that you have. Would love to hear anyone's thoughts on this or any input anyone might have.
I have a question for you, Bridget, which is
Yeah,
what's your opinion of the M dash? Because I know ChatGPT makes heavy use of it. And I think there's a
yeah.
debate these days on, is it a sign of AI or is it like, I tend to think when I see an M dash in an article that I wonder if the person used AI.
Yeah, I guess it does use M dashes a lot, but as a career journalist, editor, like we use M dashes all the time in our
Right,
writing and have
right.
always have.
Yep.
Maybe AI has just really likes that structure for its sentences. So I don't necessarily see it as, AI generated if there's an M dash, but people definitely like to post about the M
Yep, that's
dash
right.
issue. Yeah. For me, the most frustrating thing is the emojis. Like, they put emojis in front of everything pretty much.
Got it.
I, I, as a follow-on, Dennis and Bridget, I did see it. I think it was Sam Altman said now you can tell ChatGPT not to use M dashes
Yeah.
in your prompt, and it'll finally do that. So
Yeah.
I think he heard that, you know,
Yeah. And it's funny
uh,
though, like that you can tell it not to do that and
it'll do it anyway.
yeah, it's not a good listener.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll improve. Some
We
of the
have a
things.
comment
I
from
see a
Liana.
hand up too, Dennis.
Oh, yeah. And we have a comment from Liana. AI will have to pry my M dashes from my cold keyboard.
That's right. I agree. I like a good M dash.
Okay, we have a question. Looks like Mudit. Feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to add something on the M dashes. I think the length of M dash that AI puts is kind of equivalent to three M dashes that you put. So next time, if you have been, I didn't know it very recently. I discovered it very recently as well. So if you're cognizant of that, you would realize that it is AI.
That is true. It is a long, it's a long M dash.
Interesting.
And if
Yeah.
you put a comment in the chat about your daughter said Professor left an AI chatbot message in the assignment text. I do use AI for a lot of my creation of my
Hmm.
class because I decided to go book free a couple semesters ago because the books are out of date no matter how
Yeah.
recent they are. And so I've been creating my own curriculum. So I will throw my slides into Notebook LM, like you mentioned, Bridget,
Yeah.
and I will ask it to create my quiz questions. I will ask it to
Yeah.
create review of the slides that I put in their module guide that has like
Hmm.
pre-reads and things like that. I'm like, I'm not going to try to summarize this. This is something that AI can do okay, and I
Yes.
look through it, and it's probably fine because it's just taking the material that I'm already giving to it and
Hmm.
just so.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's a great way to look at it is if a bot can do this, then my time is better spent doing something else. Yeah, true. I agree. And speaking of academic use, there's a AI tool called Consensus, which is all peer-reviewed research. So if anyone wants to check that out, it's a great resource. And I think, this, I'll go back to the slides here on the AI content problem. I think, you can use AI certainly to assist you in your content creation process. It's I'm not trying to discount its value here. I mean, it's a great research tool, brainstorming ideas. I use it constantly for that kind of stuff. Um, but keeping the content human with empathy, storytelling, editing it to make it your own is how we stop all of this slop from polluting the internet. And I think a lot of the slop happens because there's just over reliance on AI without prompt refinement. So the prompt framework that I use is acronymed CoStar. So you can think of you as the AI user are the star, and AI is the co-star. And I'll get into what that prompt framework is in a little bit. I thought this was interesting. There was a McKinsey and Company survey that found only 20%, 27% of employees say that um, they reviewed content before it's used. Or a similar number said 20% or less of their Gen AI content is checked before it's used. And that's like a depressingly low number. I feel like maybe it's just the editor and me who, I we would never just post something without checking it. But and I guess it depends on the market too, because business, legal, professional service are more likely to review outputs. But that number says a lot about why we're seeing low quality AI content out on the interwebs. So here's that framework that I mentioned, and there are actually a lot of different frameworks, but they all basically are trying to get you to do the same thing, which is, make sure that your prompts, which a prompt is what you put into the AI engine. So make sure that you're including your context, the background information on what you need, your objective for what you're wanting to achieve, your style, so the tone that you want, the format, length, if you want it to be 300 words, doesn't always follow that, but bulleted list, whatever format, the tone, your audience, this is super important. You definitely want to tell AI which audience you're trying to serve so it can tailor the output for that audience. And then the output format. So that's co-star there. That does take, it takes time to do a prompt like that. So I would say at minimal, just make sure that you're including context, the task that you want AI to perform, and then the format, which is how AI looks. And then keep in mind, AI is conversational. So I think we're so accustomed to, you put something into Google, you put a few words into Google, and then you get a list of links. And you'll just click on something, right? Where AI, you got to expect to go back and forth and be conversational, give it feedback. If you don't like something, tell AI what to change and why. And setting your expectations low is a great way to enjoy your experience because I find that a lot of people will try AI and they're like, "What? This isn't what I want," and then they move on because we're kind of trained to see it as like Google or something where you don't have to go back and forth. But really, with AI, you should expect to do that. So here's some examples of what I mean by an effective versus a more effective prompt. something quick, like write 3 social media posts about, Black& Decker, say that's your company's Black Friday holiday sale. It's going to give you very generic output with something like that because you have not given it details about your audience or what specifically you're selling and or anything like that. If you took a couple minutes to say, so here's an example. Our company designs beaded string earrings. Our target audiences, women in their 30s and 40s. They buy this style jewelry. Give me 10 Instagram posts. Emphasize, what to emphasize. Include a call to action. And then I would also include a link to your website. You could include a link to your most successful Instagram posts or LinkedIn posts. AI tools really respond well to examples, more than just writing out, say, here's my style, show it examples, and it'll give you a much better output. And then I have the follow-up here. You would say, if it gives you a couple options that you like, okay, I like these 2 options, generate 5 more in this style, omit the needless adjectives, our brand would never use whatever words. So be very clear in what you don't want. So I mentioned earlier that I'm an artist. I use AI a lot to help me write product descriptions or social media copy, and I've trained it to understand my style. I use Claude a lot and it keeps using the word whimsy. And I'm like, please stop. I would never say that. Stop using whimsy. So there are ways to teach it, what words not to use and showing it your style in some successful posts are great ways to do that. So here's some examples using that CoStar framework. So I have, a campaign concept development. You would have your context. So, we're launching a spring promotional campaign for an e-commerce brand that sells home decor. You have your objective. I won't read through all of these. You guys can read, but you can see here that you're laying out the details of what you need, what you're looking for, what you want the AI to do. So I actually will share a link to a sheet that I have dozens of these kinds of prompt templates for marketers that you could access. Another page of these, you could do it for social media planning, customer data analysis, just having, keeping in mind, maybe you just write on a post-it note near your computer, CoStar, context, objective, style, tone, audience, and response. That way, all of your prompting, will produce a much better output. Before we go on to brand training, does anyone have, or has anyone tried some kind of similar prompt framework that works well for them?
We do have a couple of questions, Bridget.
Yeah, great.
So Suzanne asks, I've been using please and thank you while prompting. Is that
Yeah.
common practice?
Yeah, I did see an article about how I think Sam Altman was like saying how much money they spend on compute power for all the please and thank yous. But I think it's a good practice to be polite to the bots because if they take over, you want to be remembered as the nice one, right?
But
No, I do it too.
there was a New York Times article just, I don't know, a week or so ago that said if you're mean to it, it actually gives you better responses. So
Really?
Ooh.
take a look at that.
Oh my God, I haven't tried that. I would feel weird about that.
One of the
But
things that I've also one of the things that I found helpful is to give it some information, give the tool some information, and ask it to create a prompt for you.
yeah, you
That
can
is,
definitely do that.
I've done that a
Yeah.
lot. Like,
Yeah.
tell it like, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's the information I need to know at the end. Please create a prompt for me that's going to, that I can put into
Yeah.
your platform and get a good response.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Or just at saying, here's what I need. What do you need to know to help me? And then it'll just give you a list of questions that you should answer.
And Bridget, one more question from Jasmine. Of the tools you've used, which are best at retaining the information you teach it? I struggle sometimes with repeating info for Chat GPT to commit to memory.
So if you have a free plan, it will not remember. That's where prompt templates come in. If you can have a document saved. I also have a slide in here where I'll show you how to set up custom instructions for like if you wanted to create a brand voice, you would go into ChatGPT into the custom instructions panel and set that up. But like if you're managing a lot of different accounts, that probably wouldn't work, right? Because you would might have multiple brand voices for different accounts. So really you would, have a template and say like, you know, you do your prompt and then paste in here's the brand voice or here's the instructions to use. Because yeah, the free versions won't retain the information at this point in time. It is a big pain.
And we have a comment from Swapnil about the New York Times article. He says, it also gives better responses if you say that a competitor gave better results.
Oh, interesting.
Uh,
I'm gonna try
there's a
these
couple more
things.
questions, Bridget. You want the questions or do you want to go
Yeah,
on and
let's do
then we'll
let's
come
get
back?
some questions. I'd love to,
Okay.
yeah.
So Todd asks, is style and tone important if you're just brainstorming content ideas?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I would say if you're just brainstorming or you're just researching, you don't really need that. I would, you know, use your, whatever you're trying to get from it. You could do the minimal there and just say, here's what I need and why, and go from there.
And then from James, this is pretty interesting. James says, many of my prompts with ChatGPT are usually 150 words. I also ask it to self-evaluate its answers,
Hmm.
green for high confident, yellow and red, and I ask it to regenerate until I get green.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great thing to do. And in the earlier days when it was doing a lot of hallucinating, I would say, cite your sources with your output. And then after I get the output, I would say, okay, fact check what you just delivered and make sure that it's all factual. And sometimes it would come back with corrections. And I'm like, why are you giving me non-factual information in the first place? Like it's very frustrating. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's an infant. It's in its toddler phase, so we got to give her some grace, I think.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
that caps off the
Okay.
questions for now.
Okay. So for the brand voice stuff, and this goes into that question about retaining information, you could just, copy and paste into a document, the brand voice. So and how you would get that brand voice information to give AI is to say, here are 3 to 5 pieces of content that perfectly represents our brand voice, and you would paste that, you put it in brackets, say, analyze these, identify the patterns, including tone, word choices, sentence structure, and then generate some sample content. And then you could evaluate the sample content and tell AI, okay, this is on point, this is not good. And you do that for a little while. AI learns by pattern recognition, like I said, so examples really teach it more effectively than just describing what your tone is or what your brand voice is. And it'll take a little while to do this. But then once you have what you like, you could say, okay, so create a template for this brand voice that I could paste into future inputs to get the output that I need. And you guys will have this slide deck for later. And like I mentioned, so free AI tools don't automatically apply the brand voice after you've shared your instructions, unless you're in the same chat window. So each chat starts new, and you could just add it to custom instructions, which infuriatingly, it does not always work either. Sometimes you'll put the custom instructions and it's still, not doing what you asked. But then there are, the paid version, it's stickier. So your instructions will stick if you have the paid version over time. However, it's not as consistent as we'd like. There are other tools with AI integration that will do a really good job of integrating your brand voice. I have experience with Grammarly Business. We had our style guide built into Grammarly, and it would automatically flag stuff that did not meet our style guide. So it was, there are tools that can help you with that. So here's how to add your custom instructions. So if you are in ChatGPT, in the lower left, you click on personalization and then locate the custom instruction field. So you can see here on the slide, on the right side of the slide, it says personalization, custom instructions, and that's where you would paste in the brand voice. So, maybe it's warm, clear, friendly, no jargon, and then click save. Like I said, you wouldn't want to do this if you're using the AI tool for multiple clients with different brand voices, but you can save instructions, or maybe not even for a brand voice, just, the custom instruction might be, factual, professional voice, or fun, lighthearted. You can tell it to, respond as a pirate. I don't know, like whatever you want. You would put it in custom instructions to get a more consistent output. Any questions on that or?
We do have a question from Scott. Scott, I wonder if you want to ask this directly or I can ask it based on your chat message. I'll give you a second to answer. So Scott asks, do you use custom GPTs for specific content tasks? I use them mostly over direct chats. However, custom GPTs don't really train on your uploaded docs. This also applies to Claude. Have you run into this challenge and is there any solution?
I've played around with the custom GPTs. I actually built one myself. When I was working at TechTarget, I created something called the Newsroom Intern, where it was designed to help reporters do research and things like that. Um, I mean, they're fun to play around with. I think you can get the same kind of outputs from the main interface. The custom GPTs just, I think, have the instructions built in for how to respond to someone, and what its main function is. So it's like a branded GPT, which as a team of marketers here, can we please help Silicon Valley like name their products better? Because like ChatGPT, custom, these are not snappy names.
Yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
sorry, had my mic off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like asking, it kind of related to what you said, how you don't want to have custom instructions on your Claude if you're like
Mm,
creating content for multiple
yeah.
clients. And like the workaround to that could be like, I forget, I don't know what they call them in Claude. I'm more of a ChatGPT user, but separate projects or separate
Mm,
whatever custom
yeah.
Claudes
I actually forget what they're
to create
called.
content for each client. Like,
I think they're called projects in Claude. Don't quote me on that, but I haven't tried that. Um, yeah, and you might maybe with the paid version, you could have. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you. Um, I'm sure it could be a feature that comes down the pike, For now, I just really just like would create a template and then copy and paste it into my prompt to get the output that I want.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we have a question from James. What is the best AI for creating images, especially realistic images? He says that looking at Midjourney, it looks too AI.
Yeah, I think right now the Gemini's Nano Banana AI generating tool is pretty realistic. For example, you could say if you want to create a mock-up, say, of something, you could upload an image of it and say, create a mock-up of this image on a wall in a room with a fireplace and a white couch, et cetera, et cetera, and just describe the scene that you want. It will create that in a way that looks like a realistic photo. Um, so I think that's probably the best one right now, and it's free. Um, yeah, I agree that some of the other ones, it's a little bit illustrative, so it doesn't look like an actual photograph. Anything
In the chat, we're getting positive responses on Gemini for images and Nano Banana.
again with the names. And I just have one last slide here, and it's like the anti-slop checklist. I think, if you're using AI, you want to give yourself a gut check. Like, is this providing value to clients and customers? Um, did I use a prompt framework that included brand voice guidelines? Did I fact check the sources that I cited? that are cited in the output? And then did I refine the output? And you can, of course, also use an AI checker like Grammarly, ZeroGPT, Quillbot. Just copy what you have determined is what you want and put it in an AI checker just to be like, is this something that will raise flags in people as something generated by AI? Those are not entirely foolproof either, but they are options. So yeah, if we have more questions or a discussion, I would love to chat some more.
So currently nothing in the chat, but feel free if you have questions to unmute and ask questions. Oh,
Right.
yeah,
I have one question. So,
sure.
are there any good models that do DALI? Because one good thing about ChatGPT is if you're creating an image and if you ask it to have text on the image, ChatGPT is the only model that does a great job in having that text embedding with DALI. But are there any other good models that does something similar?
So text embedded into the image. I think I've only used ChatGPT for that kind of thing. So like coming up with a logo design, say you just want something to start with. Like I've used ChatGPT for that, or like Canva AI um, for that kind of thing. I haven't tried other image generating models that integrate text. Um, I would say even with ChatGPT, like it's hard to get something that you're happy with in terms of the text and the colors and the style. You can put the hex codes for colors, and put your brand guidelines in there and get something, pretty decent. But it will probably take a lot of finessing on your part. Not sure if that's helpful, but
Yeah, I was at a conference last August where a bunch of magazine editors who accept fiction submissions were complaining about how much AI slop was in their inbox. And there used to be a lot of
yeah,
badly written, human written stuff in their inbox, and now there's even more because there's so much AI slop. And
yeah,
their biggest gripe was they could tell within seconds that it was AI
yeah,
generated.
yeah,
That there was no, it was super flat, there was no
yeah.
subtext, there was very little emotion, the breathiness, the obsequiousness, whatever it was. And I've noticed that when I've tried to use it for marketing purposes too. I put so much emphasis on concision and each word having multiple purposes so that it
Mm,
lands with as much impact as possible. And I have not seen an LLM that comes close to that kind
yeah.
of a multi-layered value in
Hmm.
the brief number of words my space might offer.
Yeah. To that point too, like, an editor or a writer can spot AI generated content pretty easily. At the same time, us non-graphic designers will go into an AI tool and say, hey, create this image and think, wow, this is really great. And then a graphic designer will look at it and be like, what is this trash? Like this, the colors don't
Right.
work, but if you're not trained as a designer, you wouldn't necessarily know that a design is not up to par on what it should be. So I think it all comes down to, really relying on experts um, to use these tools for the services that they provide.
Mhm. Thanks.
Over the course of the semester, my students do a marketing plan, and on the last day of class, they do a presentation for their fellow classmates about an overview of their plan. And I had one of my students ask me during last class or at the end of last class if she could use AI to create images in her presentations. And I said, yes. I said, if you can create good images using AI, that's a skill in and of
Yeah.
itself. So, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it does require them to understand how to prompt and iterate to get what they're looking for. There's some creativity involved in there, and they're going to have to know how to use these tools. Yeah.
I had a question, Bridget. Can
Yeah.
you tell us about the certification for AI that you said that you took?
Oh, yeah.
Is that allowing you to do the offer you have here to
No,
do the
no.
training, or like how does all that work? What is all that about?
I so when I was working for Informa TechTarget as head of content innovation, and I actually took a severance. And I was training a lot of teams on how to use AI. So I decided when I left the company, I was going to launch my own online course platform. I'm a lifelong learner myself. I'm always taking online courses. So at this point, I have one module for an online course. But just this last week, I got certified as a generative AI leader through Google. So if you go to Google's learning site, they have, all different certifications, and one of them is for generative AI leader. It's very focused on Google's own products, but it's basically you have to understand how Gen AI works. You learn how to use AI Studio to launch applications and some other cool stuff. So even if you don't get the certification, it's worth, it's a free training program, so it's worth checking out.
Bridget, can you share about how long that took you to complete?
I did the course piecemeal here and there over like a month, but it's not that long. Um, yeah, it's definitely doable. It's the modules are pretty short. You're talking about the Google Gen AI program, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you can do it at your own pace, and it's not terribly long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Feel free to place them in the chat or come off mute and ask it.
I
We have a
think somebody
comment
was
from
asking. Oh, sorry. Somebody was asking earlier if you can show the co-star slide
Oh,
again.
sure. Can I? Let's see. There we go. Yeah, like I said, there are a lot of different prompting frameworks, but they all kind of get at the same um, structure. It's, just making sure that you're giving the AI tool everything it needs to, so you don't have to go back and forth with it quite so often. I believe this one was created by the British government, maybe some British organization. It escapes me.
What are some other prompting frameworks?
Um, what was the other one that I was looking at today? I mean, these are all made up by AI people. It's just, different acronyms, but they're all basically the same, so it's just maybe a variation on you get out the thesaurus and figure out different ways to describe this.
Right. But
Yeah.
you chose this for some reason.
Yeah, I thought that this one was more comprehensive. It does take more time because you have one, two, three, four, five, six different prompts, and you would really only use this if you're doing something that is comprehensive, like, if you just are brainstorming ideas or doing some, need a quick response, maybe you just say what your context is and what you need. And that's totally fine too. I would say, you use this more um, lengthier framework to get a lengthier, more complete output for more complex projects.
Right. And
Yeah.
you were talking about custom GPTs.
hmm
Are you aware of any that are out there in the public space that might relate to all of us in this marketing space at writers?
So I would say if you go into ChatGPT, where the custom
Yeah.
GPTs are, you could probably I think there's a whole section on writing tools. Um,
Have you used any of those? Are you?
I created the newsroom GPT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called the newsroom intern. So I created that GPT. Um, and that the custom instructions for that were, be factual, concise, don't use needless adjectives, make sure you're citing sources, remind people to edit the outputs, things like that. So it was all just kind of journalistic ethics, built into the custom GPT. And like anyone can create a custom GPT as long as you have a paid plan.
Right.
It's kind of fun to do.
amazing how fast things change because there for a while, custom GPTs were like all the rage. Like everybody wanted a custom GPT. I created
Yeah.
one for myself
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And I don't hardly hear anybody's.
I know. That's because it just it's the novelty has worn off, I guess.
But also
Well,
that's
now
the
they're talking about
future.
agentic AI.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry.
That's also the future of people who wanted to try and make apps to run on the platform. Those
Hmm.
are all going to get subsumed by the main frontier model because it's going to keep getting better and it's
Hmm.
going to be able to, and it's going to get trained on those little things too to a large degree. So of course
Yeah.
it's going to absorb them.
Yeah. Actually, before this session, I was playing around with Google AI Studio to build a brand kit where you could have AI analyze your brand. And I was about to launch this as an app and then realized, oh, I'm gonna have to pay for this. And so I didn't actually launch it, but just getting in there and figuring out how easy it is to build an application. You don't need coding skills to build a simple application anymore. Google AI Studio is really easy to use. Anyone can do it. So, I encourage you to get in there, play around, and see what you can create. Anything else?
There's no more questions in the chat. I guess last call for comments or questions.
Thank you. It was very informative.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank you
your
everyone for
time.
attending.
Very
Yeah, this
good.
was fun.
All right, well, with that, thanks, thanks, Bridget, so much for presenting. This is our final Zoom talk of 2025, but stay tuned for more coming soon in January.
All right, thanks
Happy holidays,
everybody.
everyone.
Awesome.
You
Thank you.
too. Thank you.